Welcome to ESGR Privacy Act and Cybersecurity Awareness. This training covers 3 things every ESGR volunteer and ombudsman needs to get right: how you handle a service member's personal information, how you protect it and yourself online, and what to do when someone asks for records you're holding. Let's get started. Here's how we'll spend the next 30 minutes. We'll start with what counts as personally identifiable information and why the Privacy Act makes this your responsibility, not just headquarters. Then we'll cover the practical side, how to protect PII day to day, and where AI tools fit into that picture, because that's new territory for a lot of us. From there, we'll move into cyber awareness, the threats you're likely to encounter, and the habits that keep ESGR's systems secure. We'll close with FOIA basics, a quick check-in for learning, and the resources you'll want to bookmark. None of this is theoretical. Every rule here maps to something you'll actually do in your role. Let's start with personally identifiable information: what it is, why the Privacy Act treats it seriously, and what that means for you specifically as an ESGR volunteer. Personally identifiable information, or PEI, is any piece of information that can trace an identity back to one specific person either on its own or combined with something else. Some of it is obvious: a name, a social security number, a DoD ID number. Some of it is easy to overlook: a date and place of birth, a mother's maiden name, military records, employment information, even biometric data. The test isn't, does this feel sensitive? It's, could this identify someone, alone, or paired with other details you're holding? If the answer is yes, it's PEI, and it's covered by everything we're about to walk through. The Privacy Act of 1974, 5 U.S.C. Section 552A, sets the rules for how the executive branch, including DoD, collects, retains, uses, and shares personal information. It exists because disclosure has real consequences: identity theft, financial loss, damage to someone's credit, and in some cases, physical risk. Here's the part volunteers sometimes miss. For PII handling purposes, ESGR volunteers are treated as federal employees. That means the same criminal and civil penalties that apply to paid DoD staff apply to you if you mishandle someone's information. So the standard here isn't be careful. It's when you're not sure you're authorized to share something, don't. Ask first. 3 documents anchor everything in this training. DoDI 5400.11 is the DoD Privacy and Civil Liberties Program instruction. It implements the Privacy Act, DoD-wide, through 32 CFR Part 310, and it's the reason you only collect, use, or share PII with proper authorization on approved forms. DoDI 5200.48 covers Controlled Unclassified Information, or CUI, which is the broader category most PEI falls into. It governs how you mark, store, and transmit it. And the Freedom of Information Act, 5 U.S.C. Section 552, gives the public the right to request agency records subject to specific exemptions. Your job isn't to memorize section numbers. It's to know that these 3 exist. And the T, when a request or a question comes in, ESGR headquarters makes the call, not you. For official use only, FOIO was the marking you'd see on sensitive but unclassified documents across the Department of Defense. That changed. DoD Instruction 5200.48 retired FOHUOH and replaced it with a single government-wide category: Controlled Unclassified Information, or CUI. CUI is now the standard marking for anything sensitive but not classified, and that includes PII. Every new document containing PII gets marked CUI at the top and bottom, not FOHUOH. If you come across an old file with an FOHUOH stamp, you don't need to go relabel it. That's legacy marking, and it's fine as is unless that document is being shared outside DoD, in which case it needs the new CUI marking. Don't let the new name fool you into thinking the rules got lighter. Password, protect your files, use DoD-approved tools, and report any loss the same day, same as before. One more thing worth knowing. In September 2025, the Department of Defense adopted a secondary name, Department of War, or DOW. You'll start seeing both names in policy documents. The CUI marking requirements apply exactly the same either way. Protecting PEI isn't a side task. It's supposed to sit at the front of every decision you make as a volunteer. Practically, that means a few things: collect, keep, use, or share PII only when you have the authorization to do it and only through approved DoD or ESGR forms, never a form you built yourself, however convenient it seems. Mark every document that touches PII, controlled unclassified information, and lock down paper records the same way you'd protect an electronic one. And if someone asks you directly for a copy of their own ombudsman case file, don't hand it over. Point them to the FOIA process, which we'll cover shortly. The willful disclosure penalties under the Privacy Act are real, and they apply to you the same as they'd apply to any other federal employee. 4 rules cover almost every real-world situation you'll face. 1. Password: protect files that contain PII and send that password in a separate email from the one carrying the file, never in the same message. 2. Use DoD-approved tools. That means DoD email encryption for routine PII, and DoD safe@safe.apps.mil for anything too large to email, never a personal cloud drive, and never a public file sharing site. 3. Mark it. Every printed page with PII gets a cover sheet and the label "For Official Use Only, Privacy Act of 1974 as amended." 4. If you lose PII, a folder goes missing. A laptop gets left somewhere. Report it to your committee leadership the same day. They loop in HQ ESGR, HQ researches it, and the executive director decides what happens from there. None of this is complicated. It just has to be consistent. Here's the update most of you haven't seen in a training yet. Generative AI tools, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, whatever is popular this year, are not accredited systems for handling PII or CUI unless your organization has specifically told you otherwise. Do not use them with any PEI, and do not use any third-party applications that conflict with the current ESGR and Department of War AI policy. Contact your OD and/or NCM for guidance. Treat them exactly like you'd treat a personal email account or a public file sharing site. If you wouldn't put a service member's case details there, don't put them into an AI chatbot either. Once that information goes into a public tool, you don't control it anymore. It can be logged, retained, and in some cases used to train the model itself. DoD does have an accredited platform for general CUI work, GenAI. MIL certified up to Impact Level 5, but current policy carves out PII specifically, GenAI. MIL's accreditation for CUI does not extend to Privacy Act data, so a service member's name, case file, or contact details still don't go into GenAI. MIL either. If a task genuinely calls for AI assistance and doesn't touch PII GenAI, MIL is the platform, and only with data it's certified to handle. Anything involving a real person's case details, you draft that yourself. If you're not sure whether a tool or a task qualifies, ask your IT support, NCM, or your ombudsman director before you use it, not after. Now, let's shift to cyber awareness, the threats you're realistically up against, and the habits that keep ESGR systems and the people you serve protected. Threats to information systems fall into 4 rough buckets. Natural events, lightning, fire, flood, tornado, which is why off-site backups and following local emergency procedures matter. System and environment issues, bad wiring, cooling failures, which is why you report facility and equipment problems to IT right away instead of waiting. Unintentional human threats, accidents, careless habits, entering the wrong information, which is why you slow down and double-check anything involving PII before you hit send. And intentional human threats, a disgruntled insider, a social engineering attempt, a phishing email, an actual hacker. That last category is the one most training focuses on. But honestly, the unintentional one is where most real incidents come from. Not every problem fits neatly into one box. The goal is to notice something that looks off, not to file it perfectly. Cybersecurity for you personally breaks into 3 habits. First, individual habits. Keep antivirus, firewall, and operating system updates current, use strong and unique passwords, and think before clicking a link in an email. Verify who sent it. An account you haven't used in years is still a target, so don't leave it open. Second, ESGR applications. Use MMS, ICMS, FAN, Event Plus, and ESGR.mil only for ESGR business. Use 2-factor authentication. Never share your login, and never try to work around a DoD security setting, even when it's inconvenient. Third, reporting and AI. Report anything that looks off or is an unusual request for information, hostile behavior, or a colleague oversharing to ESGR it the same day. And apply the same rule to AI tools that you apply to everything else. No PII goes in unless the platform is DoD accredited for it. 3 habits applied consistently cover almost everything. Here's something that didn't exist in earlier versions of this training. Attackers now use generative AI to clone a voice from a few seconds of audio, fake a video call, or write a phishing email with perfect grammar and no obvious tells. A call that sounds exactly like your ombudsman director or a supervisor asking you to send files or grant access right now is not proof of who's actually asking anymore. Here's what that looks like in practice. An urgent voicemail in a familiar voice, a video meeting invite pushing you toward a link or a payment, or an email that knows enough about your role or a live case to sound legitimate. The response is the same every time. Verify through a separate channel you already trust. Call the person back on a number you already have, not one they gave you. Don't act on urgency alone, and report anything that doesn't sit right to ESGR it the same day. Last section before we wrap up, the Freedom of Information Act. What it is, when it actually applies to something you're holding, and what you do when a request lands on your desk. FOIA 5 U.S.C. Section 552 gives the public a legal right to request records held by the executive branch, including DoD, though it does allow the government to withhold certain categories of information. Here's the test for whether it even applies. If the information is already public, say it's posted on SGR, it's not a FOIA matter because FOIA only covers records that aren't otherwise available. If it's not public and someone asks you for it, here's the only response that matters. Forward the request to HQ ESGR. FOIA requests for ESGR records are processed through the Office of the Secretary of Defense FOIA office, not you, and not on your timeline. Take the scenario on this slide. An attorney asks you directly for a service member's USERA case file. You don't hand it over or answer the request yourself. You send it to the FOIA process every time by contacting your NCM for advice, while letting your state committee leadership know. Question 1. Which of these is not independently considered PII? Take a moment to choose your answer. The correct answer is C. Grandmother's country of origin on its own is not independently considered PII, though combined with other details it could be. Question 2. A service member asks you directly for a copy of their own ombudsman case file. What do? The answer is B. Direct them to file a FOIA request with HQ ESGR. You never hand over the file yourself. Question 3. A service member's case file contains PII. Where can you draft AI-assisted content using that file? The answer is C, nowhere. GenAI.mil is accredited for CUI, but current policy excludes PII from every AI platform, accredited or not. Case details get drafted by you, not an AI tool. Question 4. You lose a folder containing PII. Who do you tell first? The answer is B, your committee leadership the same day. Question 5. You get a call that sounds exactly like your ombudsman director, asking you to send case files right away. What do? The answer is B. Verify through a separate, already known channel first. Question 6. You're emailing a password-protected file with PII inside. Where does the password go? The answer is B, in a separate email from the one carrying the file. Send it separately so one intercepted email doesn't hand over both the file and the key. Question 7. Which of these is an example of an intentional human threat? The answer is C, a disgruntled insider or a phishing attempt. Intentional threats come from people acting on purpose, insiders, social engineers, phishing, not accidents or equipment failure. That's the training. Before you close this out, confirm this module is logged in MMS. It counts toward your annual Privacy Act and Cyber Awareness Refresher. If anything here didn't match what you're seeing in your own state's practice, or if you've got a scenario that doesn't fit neatly into what we covered, that's exactly what your Ombudsman Director and HQ ESGR are for. Ask them before you guess. Now that we have completed the training, here are your key resources and contacts. Verify all phone numbers and email addresses with ESGR headquarters and your NCM.